Hi, so again, Jennifer Stafford with CRTPO. I'm here with Curtis. Our call for projects opened 2 days ago, and so I wanted to go over the funding availability and sort of how to apply for funds. I would say off the bat, if you are new and haven't applied before, feel free to reach out to me early on and just discuss project eligibility, that type of stuff, and we'll walk you through that process. So today, again, funding availability, just look at the website real quick, the application requirements, the forms, and then a reminder of the policy revisions we had a couple of years ago, planning projects, and then Q&A. So the big news story this year is we have 51.5 million to program. We've had this much for a couple of years in a row. Last year was 35 million, so it is a lot more than last year, but it's not out of the norm. Most of these funds are available in federal fiscal year 29 to 31. Having said that, if you're thinking about doing engineering work or design work earlier than that, we will do our best to accommodate you. But as far as the big ticket items, right away in construction will probably be that far out. So keep that in mind as you're selecting projects. Our policy looks at dividing the funding availability between highway and non-highway. So 80% is our target for highway projects, 20% for non-highway. On those amounts, we have a cap per project, not per town, per project, of 25% per mode. So 80% of the pot available is 40 million, and then 25% of that is 10.2 million. Non-highway bike ped, the overall 20% target is 10.2 million. 25% of that is about 2.5 million. So just keep those in mind. And as we go through pre-submittal meetings, I will also have that in the back of my mind. So that might matter on your match amounts. And speaking of match amounts, last year we averaged 46% match on highway projects. But I will say we had 5 out of 6, 50% or higher. One was lower, so it brought the average down just a little bit. Bike ped has averaged the last few years about 34 to 36% match. So again, keep that in your mind as you're going to talk to your board and councils in budgeting. On our website, just crtpo.org, and if you go to the drop down project plans, programs, and then discretionary funds, you will see announcement, pre-submittal agendas, the applications, and basically estimating resources and sort of everything you need to know about applying for funds. Application requirements. The big one is the pre-submittal meeting is due before October 17th. We've been doing these pre-submittal meetings. I think this is our 4th year. They go well. NCDOT is in the room. If we have a really complicated project, FHWA will be in the room, but usually it's just CRTPO, you, and NCDOT. During those meetings, we will look at your estimates and overall design. As part of the application requirement, we need estimates done by an engineer or landscape architect within 6 months. So keep that in mind too. So you can run into some hard deadlines there, especially if you're working with a consulting firm. The application is required along with Form 1 or Form 2, and we'll look at those in just a second. Minimum match on any mode is 20%. Again, the higher the match, the better you'll score. We do require a letter of financial support or a resolution from your board. I'll accept either, and I will also accept them if they're just a little bit late. Before we go to recommending projects, that if it's a little bit past the deadline, in other words, sometimes by the time you figure out which projects you need to apply for and you get on your council agenda, it might take a month and the deadline for applications might be due. But as long as it's coming up and you've talked to me, I'm good with that. And then starting in 2023, one of the changes is shortfalls shall not exceed the original application amount or $3 million. And that sounds sort of harsh to say, especially with all the inflation. But that's starting with newer applications. So if you have an older project, you're already kind of grandfathered in. Hopefully that's not an issue, but just so you know. Again, the call schedule. This year, we opened it on Monday. The deadline for the pre-submittal meetings is October 17th. We haven't had anybody not make the deadline, and I really don't want to experience that conversation because it's just not going to go well. Likewise, for the application deadline, right at 5. Like if you email me at 5:01, I just can't take it. We have to be really fair. Everyone starts emailing me the applications 2 to 3 days in advance. I do get a number of them same day, and I always email saying I've gotten them. So keep that in mind too. We have applicant presentations. We've been doing this for the last 3 or 4 years as well. They will be during the transportation staff meeting. They are optional. You don't get any more points, but people really enjoy looking at other people's projects and learning more about them, especially this year with our change. We don't have, there's a typo in there. We don't have the project oversight committee anymore. The TCC will be recommending projects, so we'll have workshops doing exactly what the project oversight committee used to do. And then hopefully everything is awarded by February or March, depending on just a number of questions and that type of thing. So quick pre-submittal meeting. This agenda is in the application packet. But again, it's just to discuss like challenges, look at estimates at a high level, answer any questions, review your scope, see if there's any conflicts with any of the NCDOT's work, that type of thing. It's super friendly. We try to make it casual. It needs, we need to accomplish things, but we hope you don't get nervous and we talk through everything. We have 5 applications that you can use this year: planning projects, highway, bike ped, or non-highway, shortfall and transit projects. So every application looks the same at the beginning. I use the same format, and then at the back is the application for the mode or the funding type. So just so you know, when you start looking at these, the beginning should be pretty much the same. Planning's a little bit different. So we require Form 1. Form 1 is for new projects. We've tweaked it a little bit this year. We've got construction, CEI, and engineering support on there. So
utilities.
Pardon me?
And utilities.
And utilities. Thank you, Kendall. Kendall was great at helping with this. And so this year we are asking for you to break out utility phase, and that's coming from NCDOT. So if you've applied for recent projects, you might have been contacted by NCDOT on breaking out utilities, and we want to get to that before the get-go. This form will put in your contingency and inflation amount. The inflation amount is typically quite large. We're using a 4% this year and into the future. So we adjust that amount every year if necessary, but it helps cushion any shortfalls, because for a long time we didn't allow for inflation. And as you all know, as we went through 21, 22, it was off the charts high. So a lot of people had shortfalls. Some came back for the shortfalls, some just absorbed it locally. Form 2 is for shortfall projects. So if you have an existing CRTPO discretionary funded project and you're experiencing a shortfall, you can apply here. If you have an STI prioritization project that has a shortfall, it needs to be considered as a new project. So just keep that in mind. we scored with the rest of the discretionary grant projects. And also, I will say, if you've submitted for a STI project, you can still submit for discretionary funds. So sometimes that happens, especially with bike ped. And then we just pull it from the list, although the odds of getting a bike ped funded through STI, I don't think are that great right now. In 2023, we had some policy revisions, and these are sort of the high level, most important ones. The inflation and construction contingencies that you saw on Form 1 and 2. On the highway projects application, we are using NCDOT's Transportation Disadvantage Index and crash reduction factor scoring. So in the application, you're going to have to look at a map, see where your TDI, how that's mapped and scored, I guess. We will also do that on our end. And then crash reduction factors is typically some type of safety treatment. If you're doing like pedestrian hybrid beacon or something like that, you'll get extra points for that. So in the application again is the list and ways to get points, and then we'll track that throughout the life of the project. Highway score modification, really the most important one here is safety points went from 10 to 15. So look at your projects that have crashes. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Curtis. He's got some active transportation scoring criteria updates.
Yeah, I'll just highlight some of the updates to the active transportation criteria. We brought this to you in summer, earlier this summer, about some of the updates to the criteria. Shared that at staff meeting at TCC and then a board meeting. And we mentioned that will be added to the discretionary policy and used in this discretionary call here. So this is what that looks like. Here you're seeing a clip of our destination criteria, our high, moderate, and low interest destinations. You see down there kind of highlighted in the green are the newer destinations, which we've added to the high interest category. Those score the highest points in this particular criteria. We've got mobility hub there at the bottom. I think that was formerly our transit stations. We've expanded that to include mobility hubs. We've also included regional trail as a destination, which will score highly in that destination criteria again. The next update is to our limited route alternatives. This is a newer criteria. We really wanted to drill down on those projects that were kind of critical and meeting a need that could not be met through any other alternative. So this criteria is asking if an alternative route exists. If yes, you wouldn't get any extra points. But if there is no other alternative, then you get an additional 10 points for this criteria.
So like greenways, right?
Yeah, typically greenways, but this could also be primarily greenways. I can imagine some other issues, but primarily greenways.
Okay. I just want to make sure I understood.
Yep. The next one is connections to existing facilities. Now, this criteria has not changed much, although we have added kind of a qualifier to find out if this connection, if one of the existing facilities that you could potentially connect to is a regional greenway, not just a greenway, but a regional greenway. I want to add some priority to those regional connections that we've talked about for quite a while at Bike Ped Work Group and with our active transportation staff across the region. So that's what this criteria is getting at. That's an additional 5 points here. And our transportation disadvantaged criteria, this was formerly an equity criteria. But here we've done something similar to what we've done on the roadway side with the discretionary, which is transition to DOT's Transportation Disadvantage Index dashboard. So we would ask applicants to visit that dashboard. We have links out to that here in the criteria, and essentially just score, again, where your project falls geographically in those census tracts, and just include those scores here. And then we'll, as Jeffrey mentioned earlier, we'll verify those also and check those new TDI scores. So that's what this criteria is getting at. And with that, I think we're getting back to policy.
So that transportation scoring guide is on the website, and it will be hopefully confirmed tonight, and then we will put a revised scoring guide on the website, a little more official, because right now it says draft all over it. But the link is same. So in the discretionary grants program policy, again, that's on the website, and in the appendix, you'll see the funding and timelines and then the scoring criteria. We also have a bike ped workbook, which I'm waiting for the draft criteria to be adopted tonight. So that link is not yet on the website, but it's coming. And the purpose of having this workbook is for you to put your projects in here to see which ones rank. So this is a small snippet. There are drop downs in the application. This follows the application exactly. And so at the bottom of this worksheet, there's a place to put 5 projects, and then you can look at the total score and compare them and then apply for the most highest scored project. Hopefully that makes sense. We also take planning project applications. This year, Brian and Travis on our team will run those. I'll sit in, but we'll have pre-submittal meetings required for them as well. We're looking at project scope and very regional. How is this going to help the region, not just a local pinpoint project? So be thinking of that. And these projects will start in July next summer, and they're typically done within a year, no more than 2 years. And again, it's the same type of discussion. What are your challenges? Did you need to talk about schedule, the process, that type of thing? Form 1 or 2 is not needed. It's just a 20% match on this. If you do a higher match, you're not going to get any extra points, but you could certainly do that. The overall target is 1%, which would be what, 510,000 or about 500. So I've heard some rumblings about quite a few applications, so we'll see how many come in. And then on November 12th and 19th, we'll have the applicant presentations here again, as I mentioned earlier, just to talk about your project on a high level. We don't get into funding or anything like that. It's just three slides, 5 minutes, because you can imagine all the applicants. It's fun. It can take a little while to go through them, but I think everybody enjoys them. So without, Curtis and I will take any questions you might have.